What's up? This is Monte Two Guns Barrett, and I'm giving a shout out to Fight City, NYC.
Welcome to Fight City NYC. Check us out on the web at www.fightcitynyc.com. My name is Ben Chan. I'm your host. And to my right, I've got Francisco Guzman from BoxeoMundial.com. And to my left, I've got Aris Pina from Gotham Boxing and also from Punch Zone. We got a jam-packed show for you. We're going to start off by talking about UFC 116. Francisco, Brock Lesnar was in action.
It was the anticipated fight of it was the anticipated fight of the year. It was a fight that, like I said before, it was supposed to happen last year.
This is versus Shane Carwin.
Versus Shane Carwin, right? And I think that the longer the fight took to happen, the more build-up it became.
And Brock had some health issues that prevented the fight.
Brock was sick. He had he had an abdominal issue. He had a whole bunch of issues.
And I heard he was about to have surgery, and then he decided not to. And
well, he did have surgery.
Oh, he did have the surgery. Okay.
Because he had, I think it was feces going into his abdomen.
Jeez.
Yeah. So it was really something serious. He had mononucleosis, which is the kissing disease, or something like that. Kissing,
not that we're accusing him of anything.
That's what they call it. I don't know why. But,
maybe he caught it in the WWE.
Yeah, you never know.
But
he's very disabled.
But Shane Carwin, for those of you who aren't familiar, he was no pushover going into this
Shane
fight.
Carwin was a fight that was dangerous on both ends.
Right.
One, Brock was coming back from an illness. He was coming back from being out for a year, so he had a lot to come back from fighting Shane Carwin. Shane Carwin had knocked out everybody since his UFC debut.
Never gone past one round.
Never gone past the first round, no. That was also in question. We never saw the guy go past the first round, so we wanted to see how he's going to perform past that first round. And it was fireworks from the beginning. You could see Brock's rust. His hand was low. He didn't look as aggressive as he usually looked. He didn't look as fast as he usually looked. And Carwin caught him with a right hand, put him down. Try to ground and pound. It was a fight that looked like it was about to be stopped. I mean, he was getting hit with some shots. I mean, you saw Brock when he got up from that first round.
Right.
He was pretty lumped up. When I watched it the second time, he blocked a lot of those punches with his elbows, and he had a kind of a guard. He was fighting back, and at the end of the round, actually got up and was about to take Carwin down.
Right.
So he was coming back. It wasn't like the bell saved him or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And in the second round, you could see what was going to happen. Carwin was the same guy. I mean, this is a guy who hasn't been past the first round, and that was in question, and it showed. You don't go past the first round. I don't care how much training you do. It's going to show the night of the fight.
Yeah, he was gassed.
Oh, he was gassed, and you see Brock's versatility. He took him down. He jumped right on top of him. He full mounted him, and he could have just pounded him out if he wanted to, but he decided to just slip to the side, grab him right under his armpit, and put a triangle choke on him, and cause him to submit.
So, did this fight answer all the questions that people had about Brock Lesnar and being an MMA fighter?
Well, being that Brock only has like 6 fights, there was always that question of how good he really was or really is. He answered a lot of questions that night. The critics probably had to be eating crow because Brock came back. Not only came back from a year's layoff, but from an illness. He came back from a lot of things. To fight a guy as dangerous as Carwin, he answered a lot of questions, no doubt.
Okay, so what's next for Lesnar? Who would you like to see him fight next?
He has Cain, this other heavyweight called Cain Velasquez. I think it's Velasquez. He's supposed to be the next guy to fight Brock. He's also a guy that's not a pushover. So Brock has his hands full coming in for 2010, 2011 maybe.
Good, and we look forward to seeing what he can do. That wasn't the only fight on the card.
There was another fight. There was a lot of good fights,
right.
that I can go on and on that night. That night had produced a lot of fights, and the Chris Levin fight versus Yoshiro Akiyama, I can never get their name right. But that was also a real good fight. Yoshiro was actually taking control in the first 2 or 3 rounds. It was a battle from the beginning, and Chris Levin, I guess, tired Yoshiro out. Yoshiro actually had Chris Levin on the ground, but it was Chris Levin was the one fighting off the ground. He was fighting off his back, hitting with elbows and punches, and while Yoshiro was just hanging over him, and eventually caught him with a triangle choke and choked out Yoshiro, called him the tap.
Right. So maybe that's a trend that maybe boxing could get into. Having good undercards.
Oh my God, a good undercard would bring boxing back to life in no time. I mean, that's really what's missing in boxing.
Right.
And UFC is not only do they put on a lot of fight cards throughout the year and pay-per-view fight cards.
They listen to the fans.
They listen to the fans, definitely.
Right.
Like I've been at I went to UFC 111, and Dana White was actually twittering with his fans, so he keeps in touch.
Right. And speaking of boxing, we had a really busy weekend starting on Friday. Let's start with the. Well, actually, no. Let's start with Saturday, with last night. What happened on the Showtime card? We had Nonito Donaire in action versus what's his name? Hernan Tyson Marquez.
He was no Tyson. Let me tell you.
Aris, what did you see last night from Nonito Donaire? I mean, he's coming off a layoff.
Nonito Donaire was having his last fight at 115 pounds. You can tell he's too big for that weight division, just his body size and everything. And for the first 4 rounds against a somewhat, a good opponent, not a great opponent, but a guy that, was supposed to give, a very tough guy, supposed to give him some rounds. Nonito Donaire, who's a natural right-hander, fought southpaw for the first 4 rounds. And his reasoning was, well, when I move up and when I'm going to be fighting southpaw for the rest of my career, well, I found out yesterday that the reason what happened is that he actually bruised his hip and that he had to fight southpaw because of that.
Oh, really?
That's what it was, yeah. Mm-hmm. And he had a bad hip, and so he wanted to try to compensate by fighting for southpaw. And he realized after about 4 or 5 rounds when Marquez was actually landing some pretty good shots on him and gave him a good little tussle. And the fight was pretty close after that. And Donaire turned right hand and finished him off the way he was supposed to. And Nonito Donaire, now who's ranked number 4 in pound for pound, which I don't agree with in Ring Magazine, he says he's going to be moving up in weight. And the guy he's targeting right now is Fernando Montiel, which I think would be a great action fight. Montiel has been spectacular as of late. Donaire has been undefeated in his last fights, but he can't get a decent fight against anyone.
Well,
it's someone worth of merit. And if he can't get the fight with Montiel, then he said he'll be looking to fight Steve Molitor at 122 pounds. It's a huge jump in weight, but his body size, I think he'll be good for it.
Yeah, he needs to go up in weight. And what happens is that if you beat the man, you don't become the man. It's like you beat a guy named Fighter, and all of a sudden no one wants to fight you. And that's a growing trend in boxing today. So that's what's going on with Donaire too. Since fighting Vic Darchinyan, how many times has he fought?
Right.
Yeah.
And how many times have we seen Vic Darchinyan fight? He's had quite a bit of fights since that loss.
Well, there was talk of a rematch, and it looked like they were going to sign a contract, and something happened, and both parties are accusing
pulled out of
that.
And it looks like, from what I believe and what I've heard, that Darchinyan was the one that really pulled out of that one. Because when it really comes down to it, Donaire completely clobbered him with a hook that was reminiscent of, they say, the Robinson-Gene Fullmer fight.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Donaire was the bigger guy in that fight. That's really what it is. And Vic Darchinyan who's very cocky, and you see the way he fights. He's squared up
like
in front of these guys. Exactly. He's
actually
to the side.
Zangief from Street Fighter.
He's crazy, and that's why he's been beat several times already. I mean, he just was too cocky, and Donaire in that fight came down in weight to fight Vic Darchinyan.
So Aris says that he doesn't think Donaire is number 4 in the pound